with Susan, and we are going to be chatting all about caring for our spouse with dementia,
Mhm.
caring for someone who had early onset dementia. So, Susan, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Krista. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Good, good. Yeah. So, introduce. I guess actually for those who are watching and don't know me, because sometimes YouTube shows these live streams to folks who aren't familiar with me. Hi, I'm Krista. I run the channel Dementia Success Path, and on this channel, we share dementia tips and tricks for challenging behaviors. Just so we know, next week from September 17th through the 19th, we are having a free open workshop on Zoom called How to Stop the Four Most Common Challenging Dementia Behaviors. Sign up link is going to be in this replay, as well as you can easily find it at dementiasuccesspath.com. So today we're going to be interviewing Susan. She is a current caregiver as well as she attended the last workshop. So we're going to be learning about her story, caring for her spouse, and hear a little bit about her experience at the workshop. So, with all that being said, Susan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. My name is Susan Udek, and my spouse has dementia. It was diagnosed about 2.5 years ago with early onset dementia. I believe he's had it much longer. I was asking the doctors, there's something wrong. I would say close to 10 years, but he was
Wow.
diagnosed 2.5 years ago, finally.
Mm.
My husband was an NYPD officer, a very young, 25 years old. He was shot in the line of duty, very bad. His leg was blown off. He was hit with a 12 gauge shotgun at very close range. We had a baby at the time, who's a grown man now, and he was in the hospital for a long time in a body cast. I brought him home, took care of him in the house in a body cast for about 6 months. And then he had to learn to walk and he did a lot. He got himself back on his feet, but he was young. They told me at first he wouldn't walk again. He would have so many things wrong, which he does. But he skied with braces on his legs. He did a lot of things. He wound up um, getting a job on Wall Street in his 50s and couldn't do it for too long. But he excelled at anything, but they told me that in later life he wasn't going to do well.
Mm.
He's been through multiples. I can't even tell you how many surgeries he's had. He has a heart condition. He has type 1 diabetes now. He's uh, he's just had a lot of surgeries from everything that happened to him. And now we're dealing with him um, with his diabetes, a lot of medical issues, but the dementia too. So it's been tough. And I was telling Krista earlier, I have a PhD over the years, acquired a PhD. I became a vice president at a college. I was never home. And all of a sudden, I haven't cooked in years. And now I'm making breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm checking carbs. I'm doing a lot of things. And I know that it was kind of a funny thing because I do have a counsel. I'm a counselor right now for drug and alcohol uh, recovery. And I my sister was saying to me that you have to get some help, and I said, I have a counselor that I speak to every once a month, maybe I talk. She said, no, you need more than that. And then I saw Krista's ad on Facebook, and I contacted her, and she's done such fantastic things. And I wound up facilitating a work group, a support group every 2 weeks, and everyone has somebody different. Either it's a mom or an aunt or it's a spouse, and everybody goes through things differently, but you share and you support each other. And sometimes you give out information or get information that helps you from doing these support groups. So I
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And in the workshop, what's really, really neat about that is we get to do these breakout groups that are very similar to what you're describing for sure. So Yeah, for those of us who are just tuning in, I think you listed a few things at the beginning of your story that could be warning signs for your person with dementia to be more at risk, or even just for yourself. You're a caregiver right now, and you're nervous about
Yes.
you potentially getting a form of dementia. Definitely making sure you eat well, you keep your stress low, you really monitor just your health in general. It's really going to help lower that risk.
Yes.
So absolutely, absolutely. So, what would you say was like the most challenging thing you dealt with before you found our workshop?
Uh, just just everything. The fact that cognitively he wasn't getting things that I was speaking about. His behavior, very
Mm,
snappy. He's never been an easy person, but it's more exacerbated now that
sure,
he's has this, and it makes me understand. But it's still hard to understand even at this point.
sure,
Um, the
sure.
behavior, they put him on medication, Aricept and Zoloft.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, but it's I don't know,
definitely.
and no
Well,
one knows if it works.
sure. Real quick, I see Rebecca asked in the chat,
Yeah.
how can we handle um, our loved one asking to go home? So I'm curious, is that something you ever faced with your husband? Like, has he ever asked to go home before?
Well, if I take him out, a lot of times he is out for a little bit and he wants to go home. If you go to a wedding or something, and he'll figure out a way. If I say, let's, we'll just stay for a little while, he'll figure out, because he has diabetes.
Mm,
So he'll all of a sudden have his well, when he was on injections, he's not on that anymore, but he
mhm,
would, say, I forgot my insulin. I didn't bring my
mhm,
insulin and my glucose is going up. I have to leave. We'd be at a wedding for maybe half an hour. I have to go home. Go home that way. I know there's people who want to go home and they think they want to go back to their childhood home. He
sure.
hasn't done that yet. He hasn't done that to me yet.
That's good.
So
Yeah, I see in Rebecca's comment, she's talking about how um, the person she's caring for is wanting to go home to mom and dad. So yeah, definitely, like you were saying, that's a super, super common
yeah.
thing. So I mean, just like with any of this stuff, and the cool thing is we are covering. That's one of our main four common challenging behaviors is them asking to go home. So we are going to be covering that in our workshop next week
Mhm.
on how to stop the four most common challenging behaviors. That is one of them. But just in a nutshell, uh, try to like I would say first learn picture what he believes true, what he then give him a reason why not right now. That would make the most sense, especially since
Mhm.
he's living in memory care right now, for sure. So yeah, that's a great question, Rebecca. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, we had a
Yeah. So,
we had a person in
oh,
our
so,
group that just went through that with his wife
mm,
living in the house saying, I want to go home.
oh wow.
So what he did was he took her out for a walk and came back and she was fine. So I mean,
Okay.
that worked for him. So
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes just changing the scenery can help.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're just all they're saying with "I want to go home" is I feel uncomfortable here.
Yeah.
So just getting a change of scenery can help for sure, for sure. Yeah. So I know you touched on a little bit how you found our group was through a Facebook ad. What did you think about the workshop when you were there? I want to say it was last March.
Um, it's so informative and so helpful, really. And I realized what my sister was telling me. It's not only support groups; it's more research. And she was saying to me, "You know how to research. You know how to," but it's a different thing right now. And then to see
Mm.
what Krista has done, and also to involve us in it, it's just phenomenal. It really has helped a lot. And I've
Yeah.
even
Would
purchased some of the books. You don't say I make money off of the books. I don't. Some of the
no.
books that have been suggested, I've purchased, and they've been great. So
Yeah, yeah, and what she means by involving everybody is that, kind of like with the videos I post here on YouTube, where it shows different scenarios. In the workshop, we do live demonstrations
yes.
where I get a volunteer and we act out a specific thing. So, just to use Rebecca as an example here, um, we would act out the exact scenario that you're talking about so that we can so it's not just me explaining to you how to do it, it's really us practicing together.
Right.
And I think that really makes the difference for sure.
It's interactive. It's
Yeah.
more interactive, which I teach too, so I know that people get it more and get more involved and buy into things more when it's more interactive. So
Yeah.
and yeah, so
Yeah, I think most of us are visual learners, honestly.
yes. Hmm.
Uh, like yeah, I know very few people who do good with just lecture. So, anyways, that's something we did then. So, I guess post workshop, I know you were mentioning. Obviously, you lead one of our support groups now. What tools did you get from the workshop that have worked now with your husband?
Um, Even just not being forceful,
Mm,
as sometimes I've spoken to Krista too, and from the group even sometimes we have to be with medication and with my husband with the diabetes, I have to be a little forceful with things like that. But certain things, sometimes you have to just let it go and kind of let it play out a little bit. And then they kind of forget. And instead of arguing, which is the worst thing in the world. And it's very tricky because you want to argue, you really do. You want to say, no, that's wrong. And you don't want, and just right now, just when you see that they have to lose things in their lives, like driving a car, things like that, it helped me kind of deal with that with him, you know. So a lot of things I've learned from the groups and the workshops um, have helped me deal with what's going on with us too. So yeah. Um, just the lashing out. Sometimes I've had friends that have said he lost friends because he would be angry, cursing, and then forget that he did it and say, "I don't remember doing that." I couldn't understand why someone was upset with him, and even my son, couple of and he did it to me, and I kept saying, "There's something wrong." And when I take him to the doctors, because he was having heart surgery and everything, I would say, "There's something wrong. Could you please just check him out?" And they'd say, "Oh, multiple. There's nothing wrong. Multiply by 7 backwards," and he would do it. And they would say, "There's nothing wrong." And I'd say, "I have a PhD, but it's not in math, I have to tell you. I'd have to use my fingers and write things down." So, yes. Yes. Yeah. Um, I deal with that still right now,
mm.
and he does it, and I have an adult daughter living with me, and she's been helpful, but she has a little bit of his personality, but
Oh.
yeah, and he does it to her, and he says really mean things, and then when you say something, the next day, I try to keep it calm, just stay away for a minute, give him time by himself.
Yeah.
Because that's the trigger that if you start arguing, it just escalates,
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's really great advice for sure.
Yeah. And it's sometimes changing a subject, doing something, and then I'm telling you, he won't remember that he did it. He won't remember that he said these things the next morning or even a few hours later. He won't remember. He won't
Yeah.
understand why everyone's upset with him.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, and then my daughter, as much as she's upset and angry, and she'll say, it's not his fault,
Mm.
you know, it's the dementia, and there's nothing we can do. And really, there isn't. There really
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah,
You know?
it's true, it's true. When you're at, like, at a 10, or when your
Yeah.
person's at a 10 screaming, yelling, cussing, they're not gonna listen to a word you are saying
No.
anyways. So it's definitely helpful just to maybe calmly say, "Look, I can't help you when we're upset," and you say "we" just so
Mhm.
that they
Yeah.
don't feel like you're blaming them or accusing them. Let's just I'll go in another room so we can both calm down. That could be really
That's right.
powerful to help just calm down and then try again. Sometimes it's what it takes. I know in my case too, as a professional, sometimes I couldn't leave the room with
Yeah.
my folks. So sometimes I would just be like, look, I'm not going to help you till we're both calm. And I just sit there and, do something else until they were calm. And then I would re-engage because, quite frankly, like you're not going to talk them out of being upset. Like that's just
No.
not going to happen. It's just going to have to run its course.
Mm. It's
Yeah.
it's it's sort of like we spoke about this a little while ago. You're dealing with someone childlike. So
Mm.
what do you do with I remember my children when they were small, and if they were acting out, and I tell them just go in your room and stay there for a little bit so I can just chill out and not
Yeah.
flash back at you, you know, and then calm yourself down. And so you're dealing with someone who's not on the same level as you. It's just
Yeah, and it's no one's fault. They're still just as
no,
much an adult as they've always been. It's just
the behavior
that
is childlike behavior
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just looks like it, but I love that you would explain, like, why you're taking a step away to your kids. Again, it
Hmm.
depends on how pissed off they are.
Yeah.
If they're just, like, really, really frustrated, maybe you can explain to them a little bit of the why, but usually I find it best to just as simple as possible tends to be best.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And just sometimes removing yourself for if you can to another room because everything when you start to raise your voice, he raises his voice more, or
Mhm.
they raise their
Yeah.
voice more, and it just escalates. And then it gets to a point where somebody might hit somebody. And
Oh, yeah, yeah, and we don't want that, and I've seen some people saying, in chat here, like, this is my every single day, 24/7, and it's true. Like, the
yeah.
thing is like, when it's 24/7, and inevitably, you are not going to be able to do or say the quote, unquote, "right thing."
Mhm.
Inevitably, you're gonna mess up, and that's okay if that's what happens. In a way, memory loss is kinda helpful in that way. If you mess up, they're gonna forget 30 minutes later, so that's helpful, but yeah, regardless, you got to take care of yourself. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
yeah, so sometimes you're not going to get to the answer of whatever problem it is right that second, and just got to take a beat, get everybody
Yep.
calm.
Yep.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah, so awesome. We've talked a little bit about some anger. We've talked about like what, I guess, other than the anger, like what other behavior did you see the most with your husband?
Uh well, forgetfulness, and he's just walking in the other room right now, so I'm trying
Oh,
to,
okay. Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
no worries,
okay.
no worries.
But yeah, finance,
Yeah,
which I'm just going through
finances.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, charging things and not remembering, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's so, so, so important to be able to, make sure that you're protected as far as, uh, that impulse, as far as, like, money, so, making
yeah,
sure they don't have access to cards, shutting down accounts that you know they have access to. That can definitely help. Let's see. Beth says, just curious, how do you get a doctor to diagnose your loved one if I suspect dementia? My mom has Parkinson's for the last few years and is showing symptoms of dementia. So I'm curious, Susan, has he been diagnosed?
yes. Two and a
Okay.
half. It's kind of a weird thing because I took him to a physical therapist that I go to, and he had surgery on his arm 3 times, and finally they found out that he had severed his triceps. But while he was there, the doctor said, "I'd like to test him."
Mm,
And he didn't say, he just said for his cognitive abilities, that's what I think.
mm.
And they did like an almost 2-hour test. They sat him
Okay.
in a room with someone asking questions. And he came out after, when he went through everything, and said to the both of us, he said, "I think you need to see a neurologist."
Mm,
Now, my
yeah.
brother-in-law is a surgeon, and 10 years ago said to me he thought my husband needed to see a neurologist.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So Beth, that might be a good move, maybe, is getting your primary to refer them to a neurologist. That could be a good first step.
yeah, just taking the testing, some of them, I won't tell you that all the neurologists do the same thing, but there's so much out right now because now they can do MRIs. My husband can't have an MRI because he
Mm,
has pellets throughout his body. But
wow.
if you're able to get an MRI done, they can see it from the MRI.
Yeah.
So, and then the cognitive testing, they do that with him.
Okay.
And each time he goes, they do it, and I see a change in the answers that come out. So,
Yeah. Oh, I see Ashley Jones in chat saying find a neurologist that specializes in dementia. Yeah,
yes,
definitely. I think this is something that is a big misconception for a lot of people, and I'm sure, unfortunately, Susan, you had to learn the hard way.
yeah,
Is that there isn't really there isn't a all around dementia expert that exists. Honestly, that
no,
would require you to have like a medical, like an MD, be a lawyer, be a social worker. Like it would require you to have so many different careers. It's just not tenable for someone
yeah,
to be an all-around expert on absolutely everything you would ever
yeah,
go through as a caregiver. So I think what's there is usually how professionals will become more specialized in dementias. They get certifications and other education on top of whatever it is that they've gotten their original degree or qualification in. So that can be hard. So I think really the way that you navigate around that is maybe when you're researching neurologist, maybe just asking them in the office, like, does this neurologist have like a specialty in dementia, or do they have a lot of experience with dementia that can help get you to somebody who maybe knows a little bit more what they're doing versus someone who doesn't. And the truth is, honestly, doctors, they know how to prescribe meds and they know how to diagnose. They have no idea how to help you day to day. Truly, it is caregivers, professional caregivers are the ones who are really the experts on that. And I was a professional caregiver for a lot of years. So oh my goodness.
yeah. I see what I wish I could find, well, get him to go to an adult take day center, because I think just to have socialization where it's not overwhelming, where you have a load of people, but small groups where he'd have people. Because what happens is people, and I know this through the fact that when my husband was a police officer and shot, all in the beginning, everybody was coming around to visit him. And then all of a sudden, when he left, when he had to retire because he couldn't work anymore, none of them came around anymore. Because I think
Yeah,
they thought, what if that's me? I think a lot of his friends don't come around now because they think, maybe it makes them think it could happen to them, and
sure, sure,
they don't want to know about it. So he doesn't have a lot of interaction with people right
sure,
now.
sure.
And socialization is really important, I think.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. Yeah, and Hunter Hornberry, what is dementia? Just curious. That is a good question. Not
mhm,
everybody. It can get confusing because you hear that thrown around. So dementia is like an umbrella term, kind of like cancer. Talks about a bunch of different diseases that, while they're different, they do similar things. Dementia is the same thing. So dementia is an umbrella term for a bunch of different types of diseases that cause cognitive decline over time that's chronic and eventually leads to that person's death. So that is what dementia means. Alzheimer's is the most specific, or is the most prominent type of dementia. So that's the one that most people think of when they hear dementia. However, there's frontotemporal dementia, there's Lewy body dementia. I've seen some people in the chat talk a little bit about Lewy body dementia. There's vascular dementia,
mhm,
and there's all different kinds of flavors of
right.
dementia out there. And I would say the main reason why you'd want to know the specific kind of dementia your person has is it gives you a good sense of what symptoms are more likely than others. each person is an individual, so everything's going to look a little bit different for each person. However, I'd say, uh, excuse me, Alzheimer's, for example, you lose memories and ability levels in like chronological order. So from most recent to oldest, abilities and memories, you lose them over time. It till the very end when you have lost language and you need total care. So it's almost like like if you see a baby or a kid going through developmental stages, it's almost like watching someone go through the developmental stages in reverse.
Right.
So towards the very, very end, for most folks with dementia, it will basically be like taking care of like an adult infant. They won't be able to talk as much anymore and they'll need total care. So it's important to plan for. However, like let's say with frontotemporal dementia, for example, it's almost like Alzheimer's in reverse, where they tend to lose language first. Their emotions are really up and down. It just tends to look very different and progress different than Alzheimer's, and so on and so forth. So hopefully, hopefully that answers your question about what dementia is. There's never a dumb question
No.
here. It's always good. It's always good to ask if you're not sure.
Yes.
Definitely, definitely. So in case you guys have just joined us, we are having a workshop for free next week on Zoom called "How to Stop the Four Most Common Challenging Behaviors." So if you are a caregiver or if you're a professional, uh, it's a great place to learn practical things and practical like communication tips or just practical things you can do in those difficult moments, like when they're asking to go home or when they're accusing you of something you didn't do, or
Hmm.
when they are repeating something a bunch of times, just the practical like boots on the ground type stuff. And I know we talked a little bit about that earlier. So if you're interested in signing up for that, you want to go to dementiasuccesspath.com. So basically this channel name.com. You'll be able to find the sign up for the workshop next week. We offer a lot of free cheat sheets, resources. I know you've
Hmm.
gotten those, and uh, some folks just like to be able to scan stuff. So cheat sheets, guides, replays. If you can't necessarily make every single night,
Yes.
again, 17th through the 19th. All right. Ashley Jones says, I love to start a support group for dementia caregivers or be part of one. Ashley, send me an email at Krista Messenbrink at dementiasuccesspath.com. Um, or just go to my dementiasuccesspath.com and just put in a note for me in there. There's a contact section on the website. And I will definitely follow up with you on that because I'm always looking for folks. Actually, Susan, you're a leader in one of my
Yes.
support groups. So
Yes.
yeah, you can maybe share, I guess maybe for Ashley's benefit, what that's like.
Well, it works. I'm trying to keep myself very busy, and for a lot of reasons too. I teach still, and I coach students in Washington D.C., which is another thing. But every 2 weeks, on Wednesday night, I have the group, and I lead the group. It's really everybody's in a different place. Everyone has we have people who the person they're the caregiver for is their mother, their aunt, or their spouse too. But it's interactive, the same thing. And we go around, what's going on? Is there anything good you want to share? Or is there anything challenges that you've had? And they share them. And sometimes I was telling Krista today um, there was a woman who's trying to get Medicaid. And I
Mm,
just went through doing that for my uncle. So I could explain everything to us. It's state, but it's different in each state, but it's pretty much the same thing. And I
mm,
explained exactly what to do. And then there was somebody else that was having some legal problems that one of the gentlemen there was dealing with that with his mom, and he could share that. So little things like that, helping each other with that. But, and there was one woman who was very emotional, that I connected with too. And um, she's going through, she's in the later stages with her husband.
mm.
And yeah, and it's
Yeah.
something you you also learn that too.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
coming?
you learn from each other, and honestly, I would say too, you guys just in general, when it comes to the workshop, when it comes to honestly anything I do here at Dementia Success Path is, uh, while we definitely validate and acknowledge
Yes.
how hard it is, because it is. It was going to be the hardest thing, honestly, that most of us will ever do.
Yeah.
Um, However, what is first focus on our wins, things that we're doing right,
Right.
stuff that we've tried. Sometimes it really helps to remind ourselves just how much we are doing right, what we're doing well. So even at the workshop, for example, I encourage everybody to take one small tip that we've learned from each day of the workshop and try it out in real life, so and see what result they get and share it with
Hmm.
the community. So first, so in the support groups themselves and in the workshops, we share our win, and then we talk about challenges. So we problem solve together, like you were just talking about, Susan, and then maybe we vent a little bit towards the end. But that way, ultimately, the vibe is a little bit more positive. Those Facebook groups, oh Lord, they could be a little depressing.
Yeah.
It can just be a lot. And frankly, we just want to hear that we're not alone,
Yep.
that there are things that we can do to make whatever we're going through easier, and maybe a little bit more of what to expect. So
Yes. Yes.
that's
And
absolutely what our groups do, and definitely what the workshop's going to do next week as well. Again, dementiasuccesspath.com to sign
yes.
up for it. I'm also going to have in the replay of this video a link directly to sign up as well. Um, yeah. Oh, that's a good thought, and Julie. Behavior means an unmet need. My dad was nonverbal early on to TIAs. That's definitely correct.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've had some people definitely come to me and be like, "Why are you calling them behaviors? Like they're symptoms." And it's like, look, when you're a burnt out caregiver, that is absolutely how you see it. Once you
Yes.
get more calm, once you feel like you've gotten a few wins under your belt, it's easier to see them as unmet needs. It's easier to
Yeah.
see them that way. But we're meeting people where they are. And that burned out caregiver, they're having a tough time. So
Yes.
that's why we call them challenging behaviors. And yeah, that's a good thought. Creative Daisy Crafts. Behavior can also be due to pain, infection. Definitely,
Very true.
definitely.
Very
Yeah,
true.
and it's good.
Yes.
It's good to think about some of the other stuff it could be. Oftentimes, you're absolutely right. When there seems to be just like out of control anger or something crazy happening out of nowhere, sometimes that can be the cause.
Hmm.
Well, we're getting towards the end of our time together. So now, what advice would you give them?
Um, as you said before, and I have to do this for myself,
Mm,
is taking care of myself first. And it's really
okay.
hard. I just think the other, and socialization for yourself too.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
yeah,
point.
socialization for yourself. I feel like what I'm doing, the teaching and everything is keeping my head straight too. And I'm able to do that still. I hope I can. But I think the most important thing is that. And then after that is what I said before, try to step away, because if it comes to a point where there's anger, it only escalates if you start to argue back. It just goes higher and higher, and then it gets could become in, turn into violence,
Yeah,
and
yeah, we don't want that.
you don't want that. So, and also get into the support groups
Yeah.
and
Yeah, definitely
follow.
get in community
Yeah,
of folks who understand.
yeah, it does
Absolutely.
help. It does
Absolutely.
help. It really does, because then you're not alone. You know you're not alone, and there's other people going through maybe not exactly what you're going through, maybe they are, and they share, and
Yeah.
then you feel like, oh, there's somebody else out there, going through what I'm going through, and sometimes it makes it a little bit easier. So, and the sharing in the group, I'm telling you that you learn things. And then also one other thing that comes in when we're in the group, there's a little bit of humor sometimes,
Yeah.
and that helps too,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I mean, honestly, how can any of us get through this without like a little bit of dark humor?
You need a little humor in your life.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I
So,
love that too. Ashley, you said you can't focus on the failures; you got to focus on the wins.
yes.
Absolutely, each new day is another day to try again, and that's all we can do, and that's really, again, what our workshop next week, September 17th through the 19th, they start at 7:30 PM Eastern.
Mhm.
Um, so I know, and if you're in a weird time zone, I saw somebody in chat, saying that they're catching us from Tokyo, which, wow, thank you.
Wow.
I appreciate you watching, my goodness. Um, yeah, so if you're in a weird time zone like that, we have an encore, I guess, that next Sunday as well during the daytime so that you get a chance to catch it if you're in a weird time zone. So again, go to dementiasuccesspath.com to sign up for our free workshop on Zoom, how to stop the four most common challenging dementia behaviors. It's a lot of fun. There's hundreds of caregivers that attend. Last time on day one, we hit like the maximum, like we hit like the maximum amount of Zoom attendees. So make sure to um, to sign up to get your spot. And in Ireland too. Wow, cool.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, it's going to be really, really awesome. And even if you can't necessarily come live, there's replays. Again, there's free resources. So why not? Again,
Yes.
dementiasuccesspath.com to sign up. So, Susan, again, thank you so much for joining
Oh,
me
thank
live
you,
this
Krista.
evening.
Yes,
I
thank you.
so
Thank you for all
appreciate
you
you.
do, really, thank you.
Yeah, and
And
honestly, thank you for everything that you do. I mean, not everybody chooses to do this, truly.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's true too, but it's, it's something for better or for worse, in life. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Mm,
That's true.
yeah.
All right, everybody. I hope we have a great rest of our night. I'm going to probably go live again sometime this weekend. I'm not sure, so be on the lookout for that. And I will see you guys hopefully next week at our
Mhm.
workshop. Bye, guys.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.